Well, Howe, thank you very much indeed for that. And before we throw it open to the floor for any questions that you might have, let me just throw in one or two of mine. You've identified a wealth of opportunities internationally that are clearly out there. You talked about public-private partnerships already offering services abroad. But do you think that here in this country, the public sector and the private sector work well within the NHS, or is there a greater journey to travel on that front?
I think, to be candid, there is a greater journey to travel. We have in the past, and many people have said this to me during my time as minister and indeed before, that there is a kind of resistance in some NHS trusts to deal with the private sector, not least the pharmaceutical sector, actually. But if you look around this event, this is all about building partnerships between the NHS and the private sector, isn't it? And I have been on a tour of numerous stands here and seen just this sort of dialogue going on that we want to see more of. Absolutely excellent partnerships. For example, if you go over to the what I call the little house over there, where they've got all kinds of techniques and technologies available to assist those who are less able, maybe some of them with dementia, in their own homes to manage their care differently. This is a classic partnership between the private sector bringing their expertise to bear and the NHS taking it up. We need to see more of that. We are, in the most forward-looking trusts, as I've mentioned, Moorfields, Royal Marsden, many, many more. Innovation is in their lifeblood. It's what they do automatically, and they deal with the private sector all the time. But I do think that in some areas of the NHS, we need to get this message out more clearly. And with the rollout of the Foundation Trust programme that we are planning, whereby every NHS trust becomes a foundation trust over the next few years, I think we'll see more of that entrepreneurial spirit emerging.
How exactly do you do that? Because if you are a recalcitrant NHS trust and you're locked into the old ways of doing things, it can take a heck of a lot to persuade you to move into, unless you see clearly before you the proof of areas where it has worked. And I guess you need to combine that with an open mind to actually receive that proof and evaluate it.
I think that's absolutely right. I think it's a combination of systems and culture, actually. I talked a while ago to Sue Slipman, who many of you will know, head of the Foundation Trust Network, and I asked her, what is the single most important thing to you about Foundation Trust status? And without hesitation, she said, speed of decision making. Because with an ordinary NHS trust, if you want to invest in something or other, you have to send a submission up to headquarters, the Strategic Health Authority. It will be considered there. Questions will come back several weeks later. You have to answer them. You send another submission up. It then maybe goes up to Richmond House for a decision. Several months later, a decision comes back. The whole process takes forever. In a foundation trust, you can take those kinds of decisions very often in the space of half an hour. That is very, very energizing. If people really feel in control of their resources and it's clinically led, you know that you can get things moving. But it is also about a culture. And I think I think that is less easy to instill. We can only instill it by example. And there are various ways in which we at the centre, I think, can help in that regard. We've got a number of initiatives going, the NHS Innovation Hubs, NHS Prizes, the NHS Institute for Innovation, the ITAP initiative, all sorts of things like that we are hoping will foster the innovation culture within the NHS. But, you know, it is about a mindset. I think we are moving in the right direction.
And do you think the mindset is changing rapidly enough at the top as well?
I think so, more and more. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said no. But I think now, particularly since the Aradazi initiative began 2 or 3 years ago, I think people have begun to see that quality and innovation and productivity and prevention, those four things that make up the QUIP initiative, are key if the NHS is going to raise its game in terms of quality of care and outcomes, and if we're going to have an affordable health service. I think that penny has dropped, and we will see the financial pressures as much as anything driving forward the QUIP initiative. It isn't enough to sit doing the same things as we've always done. We have to innovate our way out of this.
I mean, that's very interesting, because some people would say that if you want to innovate, you have to spend to innovate. Yeah. How can you do that when the country is in such a dire economic state?
You're absolutely right. It's a question that a lot of people are asking. Can we afford to innovate? I think I would say we cannot afford not to. We can't afford not to. What we mustn't do is fall into the trap of confusing the cost of something with its value. You can often invest in something that up front has a cost, but will pay enormous dividends in terms of value for patients and value for the taxpayer further down the track. Classic example is, of course, the telecare and telehealth projects that you can see around this arena. The cost of the technology in itself very often isn't that great, but the enormous savings that flow from that in terms of people time, quality of care, intervening before somebody's condition is exacerbated and they have to be taken to hospital. These are things that you can quantify, and of course we are quantifying in that particular example through the Whole System Demonstrator project, which is the largest project of its kind in the world to piloting these telecare systems, and we will be getting the results of that quite soon. So I think that will show in a very graphic way that we need to invest in these systems in order to save further down the track. And we can replicate, I hope, that kind of thinking even at a higher level, hopefully through the NHS Commissioning Board when it comes into existence.